College graduation was just around the corner when my girlfriend, Candy Sullivan, suddenly broke up with me. She gave me a mansion, a Bentley, and $18 million, saying it was a thank you gift for our 4 years together. I was stunned, desperate to know why she was ending things. But she was cold as ice, saying, "Sonny, for people from my kind of family, love and marriage are two separate things. I'm going back for an arranged marriage now. Do you understand?" My girlfriend was getting engaged, but her fiancé wasn't me. When I rushed to the engagement party, I saw Candy on the stage. She was dressed in a couture gown and adorned with magnificent jewels, looking beautiful and dignified. The man standing across from her, however, was short, maybe 5'3", and fat, his face covered in greasy pimples that looked ready to pop. My girlfriend was going to marry a guy like that? Thinking back to last night felt like remembering another life. I had just gotten back to our mansion for my internship when Candy pushed me onto the bed. She leaned down, kissing me, her voice husky as she whispered, "Baby, don't hold anything back tonight." And then, it was like she completely consumed me. But when I woke up, she was gone without a trace. Her phone number was disconnected, and her iMessage, Twitter, and all other social media accounts had been deleted. It was as if she had just vanished from my world, leaving me completely blindsided. Then, her lawyer showed up at the door. He arrived around noon. He mentioned that Candy had specifically instructed him to wait until noon, so as not to disturb my sleep. Then, he handed me a folder. I looked at the documents and sighed, completely bewildered. It was a deed of gift, stating that Candy Sullivan was voluntarily bestowing the mansion, the Bentley, and $18 million in cash to me as a parting gift for our 4 years together in college. So, she had just dumped me out of the blue, treating me like some boy toy she could pay off. But the thing is, I don't need the money. I had told Candy that when we first got together, but she just said confidently, "No matter how rich you are, you're not richer than me." I didn't bother arguing. I was in love with her after all. But why end things when everything was perfect? Last night she was so passionate, so intense, telling me she loved me almost the entire night. How could she just decide to break up? I forced myself to calm down and made a few calls through my family's network, quickly getting the whole story. That's how I ended up here, at her engagement ceremony. I could tell Candy wasn't happy. Was she being forced to marry this guy? "Kiss her," someone in the crowd yelled. I watched as the man reached for Candy's hand. She instinctively recoiled, pulling away from his touch. The man's face soured, and his thick lips sputtered with spit as he spoke. "Have you already forgotten what you promised me?" Candy's face went white as a sheet, but she took a hesitant step forward. She was definitely being threatened. I immediately pushed through the crowd and yelled to her, "Candy, if you're in trouble, just tell me. Don't force yourself to do this." Every head in the room turned to stare at me. When Candy saw me, a flicker of joy crossed her cold eyes before being instantly replaced by a frosty glare. "Who the hell is this guy?" the man snarled, glaring at me. "You sound pretty familiar with my fiancé." I was about to explain who I was, but Candy cut me off. Candy furrowed her perfect brows and said, "He's just some pathetic simp. Just have security throw him out. Ignore him." A simp? I could feel the contempt in everyone's eyes as they stared at me. It's true, nobody respects a doormat. But that's not what I was. Candy and I met at a club event on campus. I had just finished a basketball game and was so hungry my stomach was caving in, so I swiped some of my roommate's snacks. My roommate started teasing me about it and demanded I call him Godfather just to mess with me. It was just typical dorm room nonsense, so I didn't care and actually did it. That's when Candy stepped in to defend me, saying you shouldn't bully someone just because they seem poor, before also telling me that I shouldn't be stealing food. She just had that kind of take-charge personality, always standing up for what she thought was right. After that, I played up the poor, pitiful act and started hanging around her every day. It wasn't long before we got together, and the whole campus knew me as the guy she was sponsoring. People would gossip that she had a boy toy, and I worried it would embarrass her, so I told her my family was actually loaded, but she never seemed to care much. We were together for 4 years. It wasn't some dramatic roller coaster romance, but our love was deep and sweet. We barely even argued. That's why I couldn't accept her suddenly dumping me. I just had to know the real reason. I stared at Candy on the stage and started walking toward it, step by step. Before I could even open my mouth, the man was suddenly in front of me. He was so short he had to crane his neck to look at me, and I had to look down just to meet his eyes. "You got a lot of nerve coming up here," he spat, jumping up to try and slap me. I stepped back to avoid it, then frowned and looked at Candy. You broke up with me to marry this clown? What are you talking about? Candy strode forward and slapped me hard across the face. I had dodged the other guy's attempt, but when Candy swung, I didn't move. She was wearing high heels, and I was afraid she'd lose her balance and fall. She was about to marry another man, and I was still worried about her. How pathetic could I be? I touched my stinging cheek, my heart aching with sorrow. So you're the college boyfriend? The man said, walking over with a contemptuous smirk. A kept man who dares to act tough in front of me. Do you have any idea who I am? I am Greg Coleman. The Colemans are the wealthiest family in Charleston. I ignored Greg Coleman and kept my eyes on Candy, leaving without a single word. That's not fair to me. Fair, she retorted. The mansion, the car, the money, I gave you everything. What more could you possibly want? Stop making a scene, Sonny. We're over, Candy said, her brow furrowed. You know how it is for families like mine? Love and marriage are separate. Thank you for the last 4 years, but my husband can only be Greg Coleman. Do you get it now? I just have one question. Do you love me? I asked, looking straight at her. I understood all about strategic marriages between powerful families. My own parents had one, but they were lucky. They were childhood sweethearts whose love grew naturally. As for me, I was also supposed to have a strategic marriage, but it wasn't a requirement. My family's position in D.C. is so secure that we don't need alliances to strengthen it. Love, she scoffed. Don't be ridiculous, Sonny. I've known since I was a little girl that I'd have an arranged marriage. I don't even believe in love. I dated you because you were handsome and because you were poor enough to be easily managed. Candy gave a sarcastic smile. There, now you have your answer. You can go. So, the deep, sweet love I thought we had was all just in my head. In her eyes, I was just a presentable and obedient boy toy. It was laughable. I nodded slowly. If that's how it was, then so be it. My heart was aching, but I know when to hold on and when to let go. I came here hoping to save our relationship. If that wasn't possible, I would walk away. I looked at Candy and gave a bitter smile. All right then. I wish you happiness. With that, I turned to leave the stage. I saw Candy clench her fist and avert her gaze, refusing to look at me. But Greg Coleman stepped in front of me, a mocking smile on his face. Since you're already here, you might as well stay and watch. Leaving now would be disrespectful to me, to the Coleman family, and to all of Charleston. That's a bold claim. I chuckled. I'd heard similar lines before. After all, D.C. is a big city, and not everyone knows who I am. It was inevitable that some idiot would try to posture in front of me. But after I put a few of them in their place, people learned not to talk to me that way. Greg didn't catch the disdain in my voice. Instead, he clapped his hands. Immediately, a group of men in black suits emerged and started surrounding the stage. Listen, kid, Greg said, if I'm not happy today, you're not walking out of this building. Candy rushed over, glaring at me. Get out of here now. I don't want to see you again. Did I give you permission to speak? Greg snapped, his face cold. You really think I'm an idiot? I can see you're trying to protect him. Was she protecting me? I took a long look at Candy and saw that her eyes were filled with worry. Maybe everything she'd said before was a lie. But Candy just shook her head. I just don't want any ties to my past. Besides, this is our engagement party. What does it look like having my ex-boyfriend here? How would that make you look later on? Her tone softened. Greg, I'm just thinking about you. Greg's expression eased slightly, but he still insisted. I'm not worried about losing face. In Charleston, I'm the king. He pointed at me. Get off the stage and go watch from the audience. I nodded, gave Candy a cryptic smile, and walked off the stage. The moment I stepped down, I was surrounded by 4 of the men in black suits. They escorted me to a seat in a far corner. They were clearly afraid I'd try to run. From a stage, Greg called out, just sit there and enjoy the show, kid. You're not leaving until I say so. You won't let me leave now, I said with a faint smile. But later, when you want me to leave, I might not be willing to. Shut up. Candy hissed at me. I just smiled without saying a word. They were the ones who wanted to play this game, so they couldn't blame me for what happened next. Greg added, I hear you're from D.C. That's great. Some important people from the capital are coming later, all scions of the D.C. elite. I'll introduce you. It'll be a good chance for you to see how the real world works. Well, thank you in advance, I said, unable to suppress another laugh. Just then, a group of young guys walked over, all of them looking arrogant and full of themselves. Unsurprisingly, they were Greg's cronies. Hey kid, you must have a death wish, one of them sneered. Did you really think Candy could protect you? Another chimed in. Let me tell you something, even if you hadn't shown up today, Greg was never going to let you off the hook. He's not about to let the guy who slept with his fiancée for 4 years just walk away. I've got my phone right here. Want me to call 911 for you? The whole group laughed mockingly. I just looked down at my own phone, not bothering to engage with them. But one thing was now crystal clear. Candy was, without a doubt, trying to protect me. The engagement ceremony ended quickly. Next came the reception, where guests would eat, drink, and network. Greg led Candy from table to table for toasts, and everyone fawned over him. I'd taken a moment to look into the Coleman family of Charleston. It was true they were the richest in the city, but they had no real heritage to speak of. They were new money. The Colemans had made their fortune because of connections in D.C., which allowed them to land major projects in Charleston, catapulting them to the top. Despite their wealth, however, they had never been accepted into Charleston's old money society. That meant the guests here today were either people who depended on the Colemans for business or guests of Candy's family. As for Candy's family, the Sullivans were considered old money in Charleston, but their influence had faded. The marriage between the Sullivans and the Colemans was a transaction of mutual benefit. The Colemans wanted a ticket into high society, and marrying the daughter of an established family was that ticket. And what the Sullivans wanted was simply money, hoping to use the alliance to restore their former glory. I'd seen countless arrangements like this growing up, so none of it was surprising. It's a tale as old as time, a constant throughout history. Strategic marriages have always been a delicate art. Just then, a young girl who looked about 16 or 17 sat down next to me. She was sweet-looking, with a touch of baby fat still on her cheeks that made her look adorable. Her eyes and brow bore a strong resemblance to Candy's. "I'm Chloe Sullivan," she said. "Candy's younger sister. Don't say a word, just come with me." She looked cute, but her voice was cold as ice. As she spoke, she grabbed my hand and tried to pull me up, but I didn't budge. "Did your sister send you to help me?" I asked. "What do you think?" Chloe said, frowning. "Hurry up and come on, or you won't get another chance to leave." Just then, several of the men in black suits moved to block our path. Chloe sighed, let go of my hand, and sat back down. She knew we were trapped. "You shouldn't have come," she sighed again. "If it weren't for you, my sister wouldn't be forced to marry that short, fat pig." Because of me? I was stunned, but before I could ask her what she meant, a commotion started near the entrance of the ballroom. Greg and Candy began walking toward the door, signaling for all the guests to rise. Then I saw a group of 7 or 8 people enter the ballroom. They were all young, men and women, but they carried themselves with a calm confidence. The man leading them, who couldn't have been much older than 20, had an especially commanding presence. "Leo, you finally made it. This engagement party wouldn't have been complete without you," Greg said, rushing forward with his hand outstretched to greet the leader. The man, Leo, didn't shake his hand. He didn't even look at him. Instead, he studied Candy carefully for a moment before asking, "You're Candy Sullivan?" Candy seemed surprised but nodded. Leo's expression softened, and he smiled slightly. "He kept you hidden too well. We should have met a long time ago." Greg, assuming that he referred to him, looked confused, trying to remember when he'd ever been secretive. He didn't dwell on it, instead turning to the crowd and announcing, "Everyone, this is Leo Vance of the Vance family from D.C. He's the real deal, the heir to the Vance fortune, and the Vance family is the Coleman family's most powerful backer." The guests immediately broke into sycophantic applause, their faces beaming with excitement. Greg then noticed me still sitting on the couch and glared. "Hey you, who do you think you are staying seated?" Candy quickly added, "Sonny, get up now." Once again, all eyes in the room were on me, and they were all smiling maliciously. In their eyes, a scion of the D.C. elite had arrived, and my failure to stand was a grave insult that would surely be punished. I, however, remained perfectly calm, simply smiling at Leo and asking, "Do I need to stand?" Leo froze for a second, rubbed his eyes, and took another, closer look at me. His expression changed completely. Greg, however, just smirked. "Leo, this kid is my fiancée's ex. Basically just a pathetic simp. I kept him around for a little entertainment later. You know that dog-fighting ring I own? I was thinking of throwing him in with the hounds." Candy's face was pale as she gritted her teeth. "Greg, what did you promise me?" "I promised that if you married me, I wouldn't go after him," Greg sneered. "But he came here himself and embarrassed me. Why should I let him off the hook now?" Candy didn't say another word. She just walked straight over to me. Standing in front of me, she shook her head with a sad smile, her eyes full of a deep affection. "Oh, you, when are you ever going to stop giving me reasons to worry?" I stood up and flashed her a grin, the big, sunny smile she always loved. Never mind me. What about you? When are you going to start believing that your man can handle himself? I took her hand and pulled her into my arms. She whispered, so quietly I could barely hear, Sonny, I don't think I can protect you this time. Your only chance is to use me as a hostage to get out of here. Then take the money I gave you and run as far away as you can. I couldn't help but smile at her helplessness. She still didn't believe in me. Had I really hidden my background that well? Just then, the men in black suits began to close in. But at the same time, the hotel's catering staff started to move in as well. They blocked the path of the suits, and when the bodyguards tried to push past, they were taken down in an instant. In fact, within seconds, every single one of the Coleman family's bodyguards in the ballroom had been neutralized. The sudden turn of events made everyone in the ballroom gasp in shock. Candy was just as confused, grabbing my arm to run. Let's go. We don't need to, I said, gently taking her by the shoulders and guiding her to sit on the sofa. Then I sat down beside her. I leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. It was a casual, almost arrogant posture, but it commanded respect. Candy just stared at me, her expression blank, as if she were seeing a complete stranger. In her mind, I had always been a cheerful, sunny, sweet, and considerate guy. She had never seen this side of me, the one with a sharp edge. Greg was stunned for a long moment before he finally found his voice. Kid, do you have a death wish? This is Charleston. This is my town. I get it now, Greg shouted, pointing at the men who had taken down his security. Candy gave you money, and you used it to hire these thugs to crash my party, right? What he didn't know was that an hour before I'd even arrived, my own team had already replaced the entire hotel staff. There's an old saying, a wise man doesn't stand under a crumbling wall. Did he really think I would walk in here so openly without being prepared? Greg turned to Leo beside him. Leo, lend me your bodyguards. I'm going to kill that boy toy. Leo said nothing. He walked directly over to me, stopped, and then bowed his head respectfully. Mr. Hayes. His tone was one of utmost deference. The people he had brought with him all followed his lead, bowing their heads as well. I just smiled slightly, without saying a word. The scene left everyone in the room speechless with shock. Greg ran over, sputtering, Leo, what is this? Crack. Leo slapped him hard across the face. Did you think I came here today to support you? He snarled. I just found out you had the audacity to try and steal Mr. Hayes' woman. I came here specifically to deal with you. What? Greg stammered, clutching his cheek, his greasy face a mask of utter confusion. The Hayes family from D.C., Leo continued. Have you never heard of them? Greg's face went completely white. He started to tremble. You're saying Sonny is from the Hayes family in D.C.? Not just from the Hayes family, Leo said coldly. He's the sole heir. The crowd started whispering. The Hayes family? Are they a big deal? You don't know the Hayes family of D.C.? 7 of them have served in the cabinet over 3 generations. Wait, then is Candy Sullivan crazy? If she has a boyfriend like that, why would she let herself be threatened by Greg Coleman? The murmurs from the crowd made Candy's face change color. She stared at me for a long time, her expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning realization, tears welling in her eyes. I sighed. I tried to tell you how powerful my family was so many times, but you never believed me. I figured it didn't matter, and you'd find out eventually when we got married. I never imagined you'd be so foolish as to nearly let some pig get his hands on you, just to protect me. Candy started laughing through her tears, playfully punching my chest. I pulled her into a hug. Think about it, I said softly. You're beautiful. You come from a good family. Why do you think not a single guy dared to ask you out in all 4 years of college? You arranged all that? She asked, her voice muffled against my shirt. Candy glanced at Leo in surprise. But didn't he just say you kept me well hidden? Oh, they all knew who you were, I explained. But they also knew they weren't allowed to approach you without my permission. As for any other guys who might have been interested, my people took care of them long before they got anywhere near you. The mansion we lived in was yours, yes, but the housekeeper, the driver, the gardener, the chef, they were all my security detail. The janitors at school, my roommates, even your best friend, they were all people my family trained to be my companions, and they've been with me since we were kids. I sighed. I didn't tell you the truth partly because I knew you wouldn't believe me, but also because I didn't want to put that kind of pressure on you. I should have told you sooner, though. Then you never would have had to deal with this threat. The truth was, I never took the Sullivan family's problems seriously enough to investigate. Otherwise, Greg Coleman would never have been an issue in the first place. All they wanted was to restore the declining Sullivan family to its former glory. For the Hayes family, that's something that can be accomplished with a single phone call. And now, it was time to deal with Greg Coleman. Mr. Coleman, I said with a smile, you certainly carry yourself with a lot of confidence. Greg's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. He started bowing his head repeatedly, pleading, Mr. Hayes, I swear I didn't know who you were. I never would have dared. But even as he begged, I could see the venomous hatred in his eyes. I glanced at Candy. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. I didn't even get you to sleep until dawn, and then I had to rush back here for this party. He never had a chance to lay a hand on me. I nodded and stood up. All right, we'll leave it at that for now. For families at our level, resolving issues isn't about crude violence. After leaving the ballroom, we went to the Sullivan family home. I had seen Candy's parents at the party earlier. They hadn't said anything to me then, but their disdainful looks when I first showed up were unmistakable. Now that they knew who I really was, I could see their excitement, though they were trying hard to suppress it. I knew they were trying to act composed and dignified to avoid looking foolish in front of me. Of course, none of that really mattered. The Sullivans were so far beneath my family's level that I couldn't be bothered to analyze their motives. I sat in their living room, with Candy's parents across from me and Candy by my side. I had already sent Leo and his friends away to enjoy themselves somewhere. I spoke calmly. The Sullivan family wants to restore its fortunes. That's not a problem. Give me 2 weeks. But Candy's father suddenly interjected. Actually, what our family really wants is to establish ourselves in D.C. I held up a hand to cut him off. Sir, I understand your ambition to bring glory to the Sullivan name, but if you take too big a leap, you're liable to pull something. Let's take it slow. These things need to be done step by step. Candy's mother frowned. Marrying Greg Coleman would have gotten our family into D.C. immediately through the Vance family's connections. How is it that the Hayes family is more powerful than the Van Cess, yet you can't do the same for us? Kenny looked pained. Mom, Dad, please just listen to Sonny on this. Let's drop it. You're not even married and you're already taking his side. Her mother snapped, slapping the coffee table. Let me be clear, Sonny. If you can't get the Sullivan family established in D.C. immediately, then this wedding is off. No wonder their family had fallen on hard times. The two of them had absolutely no foresight. I was about to respond when Candy squeezed my hand. She looked at her parents seriously. Mom, Dad, our family can't just force its way into D.C. society. Even with Sonny's family's help, we'd be looked down on, treated as outsiders, and even used as a weakness to attack the Hayes family. What we need to do is focus on rebuilding our strength here in Charleston. In 10 years, we'll be ready to make the move. Are you lecturing me? I'm your father, her dad yelled. Candy's temper flared too. Dad, if it wasn't for your stubborn pride back then, our family never would have been scammed. We wouldn't have lost everything, and Grandpa wouldn't have died. Why can't you ever learn? Then she grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the door. Let's go, she said. They're being irrational. There's no talking to them. This was the Candy I knew, decisive and always right. On the way to our hotel, I asked her about the scam, and she gave me the short version. Apparently, some fringe player who knew a few names in D.C. convinced her father to invest in a scheme, promising it was his ticket into the inner circle. The entire family was against it, but her father went ahead anyway and nearly lost everything. Ever since then, he's been obsessed with breaking into D.C. society. Getting into the D.C. elite is a genuine obsession for some of these provincial families. But the number of families who have successfully made the leap from a place like Charleston and truly established themselves in Washington is practically zero. Every circle is exclusive, after all. This is especially true of the D.C. elite, who control the country's most valuable resources and have no desire to share them. Yet every year, someone from that circle uses the promise of entry as bait to reel in a big fish from the provinces. Take Leo, for example. His target was the Coleman family. Greg Coleman might be the richest man in Charleston on paper, but it's an empty title. Most of the money the Colemans make goes straight to Leo Vance as tribute. I've run similar plays myself. I explained all of this to Candy on the way back to the hotel. She listened intently, but didn't say a word. When we got to our room, she curled up in my arms and said, Sonny, seeing you like this, it's like I'm meeting you for the first time. You always seemed like this carefree, overgrown kid, but now you're so worldly and wise. Which one is the real you? They're both me, I told her. When I'm with you, I can just be myself, the purest version. As for being worldly, it's just the way our world works, something you pick up from a young age. If you're curious, we can live at the family estate after we're married. You'll see for yourself. Candy nodded, then shook her head. I'm not interested in any of that. I only worked so hard because there was no one else to carry the Sullivan family. Now that I have you to lean on, why would I need to keep fighting? She was right. With me in her corner, she wouldn't have to fight anymore. After dark, Leo sent a car to pick us up. We drove to a property on the outskirts of the city. It was a dog kennel owned by Greg Coleman. And by kennel, I mean a dog fighting ring. There was a reason we were here. Greg and Candy's parents, the three of them, had lost their minds. They had actually conspired to kidnap me and use me as leverage against the Hayes family to get what they wanted. The problem for them was the moment Greg sent his men after me, Leo's team intercepted them and brought them all here. I sat in the stands, overlooking the fighting pit. Greg had been thrown inside. He was covered in blood, and across from him, a massive Tosa fighting dog strained against its leash. Next to me, Candy's parents were trembling uncontrollably. I truly hadn't expected them to be stupid enough to try and kidnap me. Candy was shaking with rage, her teeth clenched. Were you possibly thinking, she hissed at them, even if you had kidnapped Sonny and forced your way into D.C., did you really think there wouldn't be consequences later? What's to be afraid of? Her father retorted. By then, it would have been a done deal. The Sullivans would be established in D.C., and you'd be the Hayes family's daughter-in-law. Would they really dare to move against us then? Candy was so furious she was speechless. I patted her hand to calm her down, then turned to her father. You clearly don't understand how things work at the highest levels. If my life had been genuinely threatened, my parents would no longer care who I love. They would have bypassed me completely and simply made the entire Sullivan family disappear, including Candy. It sounds cruel, but it's the truth. My parents wouldn't even have let Candy live, because they would see her as a potential threat seeking revenge, a loose end. From the pit, Greg screamed, Mr. Hayes, I know I was wrong. Please, give me a chance. Greg's scream was cut short as the Tosa's leash snapped. I didn't let Candy watch the bloody scene that followed. I stood up and led her away. Her parents tried to follow, but I stopped them. I looked back at them. You two are going to watch. Then you're going to write me a 10,000-word essay on what you've learned. If it's not insightful enough, you'll keep watching. There are plenty more members of the Coleman family. After all, they needed to learn how to behave as my in-laws. 6 months later, Candy and I graduated from college. We returned to D.C. together and had the wedding of the century.